Wow, that was way more subs than I was expecting. Welcome everybody. I've really been enjoying reading the comments section, so I decided to create a Discord to extend the conversation to the community. It's in the link below, so check it out. Also, I have a Patreon, uncensored episodes, plus your name in the credits. Anyways, moving right along. Warning, absolutely everything I'm about to talk about is beyond sickening, disgusting, and vile to its very core. Okay, I'm done selling you the movie. Let's jump in. As many of you who watch this channel may know, I have a weird thing for misery porn. Movies like Funny Games, The Girl Next Door, and a Serbian film on the more extreme end are all interesting movies to me because of their ability to make the viewer extremely uncomfortable. In my opinion, that's what good art is all about. Its ability to take a viewer out of their comfort zone and force them to reflect on what exactly is making them squirm. However, sometimes these hard to watch flicks are also a masterclass in unique storytelling, where it goes above and beyond simply delivering on story or scares, and that is definitely the case with today's movie, Irreversible. A movie that pushes the boundaries while also delivering unique stylistic choices. This is a great revenge-driven ride straight to hell, but played in reverse. So strap yourself in and get ready to take a cold shower at the midpoint scene because it really goes there for way too long. Now, there's one detail to this movie that is absolutely haunting, one that I hadn't even caught until one of the commenters in my Instagram community pointed this out to me. And I've gotta say, it blew my f***ing brain up. It's not only an insane catch, but also redefines the entire meaning of the film in a haunting way that I hadn't even considered. And thus, I am going to be sharing that secret with you all so that you can appreciate this film on a deeper level and hopefully find new things within it. Before we continue, consider smashing that subscribe button if your taste in movies runs as black as mine. And possibly a like if you want to egg me on to keep watching this shit. Now, this movie is the brainchild of Gaspar Noé, once again I think I'm pronouncing that right, who met the stars of the film, Monica Bellucci and Vincent Cassel, while out at a party, and dug their vibe. I'm sure they were flattered, and got that all the time because they're both hot. But the problem with the couple was that every movie they were approached with were bland romance movies. They weren't interested in any of that. No, they wanted something grittier. Something more raw, more real, one that might even depict their relationship being put in jeopardy. And so, Noé proposed a movie. That's right, he proposed a remake of the 1983 film Betrayal. But then they all decided, nah, f that, let's do our own thing. So instead, Noé wrote a script that he would later sell to Bellucci and Cassel as a rape revenge fantasy in reverse. And once they had the green light, they began filming in chronological order. From there, the movie was flipped in reverse. I guess it wasn't truly irreversible now, was it? I will give Mr. Noé this much credit for his direction style. The film is, without a doubt, one of the grittiest, most raw films I've ever seen. Right off the bat, it starts with a French neighborhood screaming homophobic slurs at the heroes into the night. Sheesh, and here I thought French was a love language. It sets the tone for how unabashedly wretched the experience you're about to delve into is going to be. So, if you've seen the movie Memento, you should understand the format presented here. It's a story told backwards, each scene being shown in reverse chronological order. So, if this film were to start at Act 10 of a play, for example, the beginning of the movie would be Act 10, and then the next scene would be Act 9, then 8, 7, etc., etc. It begins at the end, with two characters being hauled off into the night. This is the part where they're being screamed at by angry French villagers who have terrible things to say about them. The fear in the apprehended individual's face is obvious. Then, the film jumps backwards. We're thrown into a very tense search through a dark, seedy club known as Rectum. Very creative, by the way. This club explains the neighborhood's vitriolic homophobia. This place does not have a great reputation. We don't know why our protagonist is there. We only know that his name is Marcus, and he's pissed. He's slapping people for information, he's beating up gimps into complying with his demands, and he's being offered blowjobs left and right. It's a very sexually explicit environment he's trying to navigate through, but he perseveres until he meets Latenya, the man he's been looking for. He assaults this man, ready to claim revenge for whatever wrong he's been done. And then, when they finally duke it out, after the suspense has been built, Marcus loses the fight, has his arm broken at the elbow, and then his assailant prepares to sodomize him while a crowd looks on and cheers. I think it's safe to say from this point that our hero's situation has become quite dire. However, before Latenya can enter Marcus's brown eye, he is brutally murdered by way of fire extinguisher. This is executed by the friend who followed Marcus into this dark club, the one who was in the back of the police car with a terrified look on his face, and, most cruelly ironic of all, he was the one who was originally trying to talk Marcus off of this cliff of violent justice. It must be said, the amount of damage the friend does to this man's skull in this moment is truly impressive. It was done through CGI, as they tried to use a prosthetic and it didn't look realistic enough. But this is not the same PlayStation 2 look that most CGI had in the early 2000s. It is realistic and gruesome, like it had been done by the best in the business. The skull shatters, the eye sockets cave in, blood and brains spill out. It's just top tier levels of gruesome. They mash this man's cranium into pure casserole. Shockingly, this is only the second most offensive scene in the movie. By now, the audience is no doubt asking themselves, what did this man do to deserve that violent kind of death? Well, let's go back even further. Before that whole mess at Rectum, the club to be clear, Marcus had been talked into this mission of revenge by a man on the street, who was actually a security guard for the set that the director decided to have star for a few scenes. The guard tells Marcus that the police won't do anything, and even if they do, is that justice? Having him live in a room that's paid for by taxpayers, where he has a bed and 3 square meals? If justice is to be done, Marcus needs to take that for himself. Revenge, he says, is a man's sport. No p***s allowed. That's his quote, by the way. In these moments, it becomes clear why so much homophobic language and toxically masculine ideals are necessary to tell the story. The reason this man has been driven to this revenge mission transcends the actual events he's in. His masculinity has been challenged in that moment, and he needs to assert himself. And he chases this ideal all the way to a dank gay sex dungeon called Rectum. The irony is perfection here. Then, after we've learned who enabled the mission, we jump back in time once more and learn why Marcus was so driven by revenge. He sees a crime scene outside of a party he was just attending. He asks a stranger what's going on, and the stranger explains, thank you for putting it so beautifully, random stranger. However, his interest in this random act of pure violence becomes pure horror as Marcus recognizes the victim being carted off from the alley into an ambulance. It's the love of his life, Alex. Seeing her there, beaten to a coma after being raped in an alley, the rage has been unlocked. We know what set him off on this mission of fury and revenge. The loss of his true love to an act of pure evil. And his fury will only make more sense as this tale continues. Or, I guess, as this tale regresses. In the next backstep in time, Alex makes her unsullied entrance, played by Monica Bellucci, who, yes, looks smoking hot as usual, but you will feel extremely wrong for thinking that thought in about 5 to 10 minutes of runtime. She is about to give the most uncomfortable performance of any of our lives, as well as unlocking a new fear in audiences. The fear of underpasses. Monica, who, yes, I will be calling Monica for the rest of this video, is leaving a party. Her face is no longer bashed and bloodied, thus endowing us with the terrible and uneasy knowledge that whatever happened to her that left her in that beaten state, well, we're about to see it. She looks across the street. A taxi is waiting, but there are no crosswalks, and traffic is consistent. So she gets the most terrible advice of her life. It's safer? Has this lady never seen this underpass? It looks like a combination of a crack den and one of the hallways from the hotel in The Shining. I would rather play Frogger with traffic than use that f***ing underpass. Not blaming the victim here. I'm just saying, that place screams danger. Probably why it was shut down in real life. Anyway, the point is, You already feel an overwhelming sense of impending dread as she enters this underpass. She walks down these stairs and across the dark tunnel, and we just feel it. Something awful is about to happen. Even if you've heard of this movie or the reputation it's garnered for this scene, you are still going to feel the terror that is pronounced in each step she takes as she walks towards this dark passage. That's when the culprit shows his face. The same face that gets bashed in with a fire extinguisher at the beginning of the movie, Latanya. This miserable prick is already verbally berating another woman, showing the audience right off the bat that he's a terrible person who deserves to get curb stomped with a fire extinguisher in a sex dungeon. But it gets worse. He lets go of the woman he's berating, having set his eyes on a new target, Monica. This is the catalyst for disaster, as well as our introduction to the most unnecessarily long and gratuitous graphic SA scene I've ever seen put on film. It is almost 10 minutes long. 10 minutes! When asked why this scene was so long, the director explained, and I'm paraphrasing here, "Real rapes often last longer than that." I was actually impressed with this answer, because he's absolutely right. It's not necessary in every movie that touches on the subject to show it so thoroughly, but the reason why he decided to go there was because he wanted to show how f***ing awful it really is, to make something so visceral and vile and raw that any viewer will be forced to reckon with true evil in the world. The kind that takes what it wants, no matter the cost, and discards its victims like trash afterwards. It's harrowing. It's the kind of filmmaking I applaud, actually, simply because it has the guts to go there to make its point. But I get why 200 people walked out of this film showing at the film festivals. It's really, really awful to watch. Now look, I've officially gotten done defending the movie's right to go there with a scene depicting sexual assault like this, but I have to admit, the first time I watched this movie, I couldn't get through this scene. The way he pins her down in an alley, forcing her to do as he pleases while she fights and screams, this is one of the only pieces of cinema that I just couldn't get through. It was the same thing when I first watched I Spit on Your Grave. The subject of sexual assault really, really bums me out. So this scene was an absolute chore to sit through, and it just keeps going, and going, and going, and going. Eventually I just said, I can't watch any more of this shit. I'm gonna go make a sandwich.
It's still going?
As if the actual depiction of sexual assault itself wasn't horrible enough, the man ends this encounter by using Monica's head as a soccer ball until she's bloodied to a pulp, left in the state she was found in earlier in the runtime. The man leaves her in an unceremonious pile in the alley, which shows us exactly why Marcus is on this mission to murder this man. You as an audience feel the rage in that moment, something that would drive almost anyone into a rage-filled insanity. So this somewhat justifies the graphicness of the rape scene. Personally, I think this movie could have made its point just as well with a little bit less rape, but what do I know? Monica Bellucci was apparently in control of the filming for this scene and chose the duration of the runtime as she was in control of each take. So if she's down to do this portrayal, who am I to object? But I mean, was the CGI penis really necessary here? Then, the movie takes us back another rung in the timeline, where we learn why she left the party to begin with. Marcus, her boyfriend, was being an absolute buffoon. I mean, I thought he seemed pretty funny and charming as he drinks, does coke, and makes out with literally every girl at the party. But I understand where Monica is coming from here. He's not being a gentleman, he's being an absolute dog. And Monica isn't having it. She wants to go home, sleep it off, and deal with his idiocy later. So he lets her go. And that is why he feels so horrible about all of this. We understand his guilt in that moment. In his mind, her assault was his fault. And after seeing what we've seen, we can't help but endorse his mission to kill Latanya. Or at the very least, we understand his perspective. We get the fire extinguisher death. As mentioned, the ultimate execution was pulled off by the friend in the equation, Pierre. And Pierre spent the whole night trying to convince Marcus not to confront his lover's assailant while manic on a coke-fueled rampage. But at the beginning, or end I guess, it was Pierre who ultimately turned the assailant's head into hamburger. Why did he care enough to do that? As we go one more slot back in the timeline, we learn the answer. Pierre used to have a relationship with Monica, a sexual one at that. But they were sexually incompatible. As they talk, you learn two things. Pierre truly loves her, and they have the most uncomfortably explicit sexual conversations I think I've ever heard being yelled in public. Don't get me wrong, I'm down for a little bit of dirty talk on a public subway, but talking about how often you come during sex in a car full of strangers? I don't know, call me old-fashioned, but I'd rather keep information about my O counts for more private settings with intimate partners. A real Ned Flanders over here, I know. The most devastating revelation of all comes at the beginning of the timeline, end of the movie. Monica and Marcus are in bed. Monica awakes, recalling a dream of a long red tunnel and how it was broken in two. An apt metaphor for everything we've seen so far. As Monica and Marcus sit in bed, naked and grinding, she asks, "What if I'm pregnant?" A few minutes later, we find out she is, in fact, pregnant. She wasn't just his lover, she was his future baby mama. He lost 2 people in that alleyway assault. It just makes the whole film that much more cruel in tone, especially when you get to that final scene where Monica sits there in a beautiful park as the sun shines down upon her. She looks like an Italian angel, the complete opposite of how we were introduced to her. And we hope for her survival. She was in a coma after all. Will she ever wake up? Possibly. But the child? Most likely gone. That's your meditation to dwell on as we pan out and the credits roll. What's really interesting about Irreversible is the fact that it plays about just as well forwards as it does backwards. They've released a straight cut, a very glib way to phrase it given the movie's constant homophobia. I watched that one to prepare for this video, though I had already watched the original cut several years ago. And I came to appreciate the story playing out backwards, or I guess technically forwards, just as much as I like the original cut. When presented this way, you learn about Monica's pregnancy right away, and you get to watch the relationship dynamic play out between the 3 of them immediately. These are no longer revelations. They're the driving point of the story now, the beacon that directs the rest of the plot home. When you hit the middle point, the result is exactly the same: dread and horror for Monica's character, because it's built up just as well when you reverse the movie. In this way, it's totally different from Memento, which only really works in the format it's presented in. It might be interesting to see Memento in chronological order, but here, chronological order is just as powerful and effective as the original reverse order. It's not just a gimmick. It's more like Pink Floyd's album Wish You Were Here. Backwards, forwards, doesn't matter. It's a masterpiece either way. Now, remember that haunting detail I promised in the beginning? The truth is, Marcus and Pierre thought that they had killed Latenya inside of the club Rectum. However, there is a catch, one that you probably didn't see due to the shaky, blurry camera angles and the frantic pace of each scene. This haunting detail brings brand new meaning to the end of the movie, so let's take a look. When Pierre kills Latenya with the fire extinguisher, we assume that even though he and Marcus are now going to prison, they at least had enacted revenge for the brutal rape and assault of Monica. But what if, in this heated moment, they got the wrong man? That's right. The person who they attacked at the club isn't even Latenya. In fact, Latenya is in the background of the shot while the other man is getting curb stomped with a fire extinguisher. See, he's right there. So what does this mean? It means that Marcus and Pierre killed the wrong man. Whew! I gotta tell you, that one sat heavy with me. Obviously, I took the message of revenge bad seriously when I was watching this film, but this new element added an absolutely haunting detail, which gives this film a haunting new lens to see it through. Revenge is supposed to be a man's sport, according to the man who talked Marcus into this mission. However, due to his short-sightedness, he chose the wrong man and his revenge mission was completely blinded and therefore doomed to begin with. That is the true meaning of Irreversible. Originally, I thought Irreversible to not really have much of a meaning, to simply be a stylized fever dream, in which all of the images and meaning come at you in blurry waves. But after considering this piece of information, you see why everything is necessary in Gaspar Noé's vision. The confusing nature of all of the earlier shots is intentional to mask the horrible truth that Marcus and Pierre had committed murder over a faulty ideal and a wrongly chosen victim. That is haunting and fucked up and goes far beyond the typical revenge bad narrative that most films are guilty of being lazy in the execution of. This movie exists as a stylized fever dream, where whatever message you take from it is given in blurry glimpses throughout the runtime. Pieces of Marcus's mission swim in and out of your consciousness like images in a kaleidoscope, allowing you to interpret them as you will. But it's an unapologetic experience that isn't afraid to go for the throat with style. And the way that the movie seems to ravel rather than unravel is very interesting, like we're putting toothpaste back into the tube rather than dispensing it. The plot becomes less intense as the experience continues, rather than tensing. It's a very unique storytelling experience, so check this movie out, whether it's the straight cut or the classic reverse. And as I usually say before giving anything my recommendation, make sure you prepared your brain for this one. I mean it when I say this is the most brutal depiction of sexual assault I've ever seen in a movie. And if you're easily triggered by things like that, you might want to skip this one. You'd probably have an easier time getting through I Spit on Your Grave. Seriously.
Anyways, that does it for this week's episode of Rockin' Horror Picture Show. Let me know what you thought about Irreversible in the comments below. I'm Sleeve T, your host, and as always, I'm doing just fine.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Sleeve T. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Rocking Horror Picture Show. If you want to support this new twisted little channel, check out my Patreon in the link below. It's going to have all of the episodes uncensored, plus you'll be supporting my work, and thus I'll add you to the credits at the end. Hope I'll see you guys next week, and until then, rock and roll.